Welcome, everybody. I would like to introduce Alan Ohashi, our current Board of Directors President of CohoUS.
Thanks, Karen, and I appreciate all my colleagues and for showing up to support co-housing tonight, and the folks who came live and in person. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to come learn about what the association's been doing. But as Karen mentioned, I'm Alan Ohashi, and I've been living in a co-housing community called Silver Sage Village in Boulder, Colorado for the past 11 years. And just a little bit about my co-housing aptitude. When I moved into co-housing, I was kind of like dragged along. My partner Diana and I we lived in a little two-story condominium townhouse like a block away. And planning ahead, Diana thought that it would be a good idea to find a place that was on the ground floor, no stoops, no stairs, and handicap accessible. You know, mostly the dogs were having a hard time getting up the stairs in that townhouse. But anyway, a guy at Silver Sage Village, which is like a block away, had died, and his condo became available. The heirs were kind of having a hard time selling it, and sure enough, we came to learn about it, and it was on the ground floor, no stoops, no stairs, and when fully accessible. And I didn't know much about Silver Sage, except that I knew Jim Leach, who now happens to be my across the sidewalk neighbor. And he's a local developer who I knew when I was on the city planning board for a stint. And Jim also happened to be the developer for Silver Sage Village, as well as Wild Sage Co-housing, which is where Karen lives across the street from me. Well, the condo turned out it was part of the City of Boulder affordable housing program. And we were qualified and sold our two-story townhouse that was sort of a regular market rate townhouse. And turned out the one we moved out of was 600 square feet, and we actually upsized to 800 square feet when we moved into the co-housing. Usually senior citizens are downsizing and then move into a smaller unit in the co-housing. We were kind of the opposite. But at that time, I really didn't know anything about co-housing or much about co-housing, except maybe intellectually about it. But it wasn't until I was on my deathbed in 2013 with this weird lung disease that I finally figured out what co-housing was all about. In fact, I had this big aha road to the Saul to Paul sort of a transformation after I had risen from the dead in 2014. But the road to Tarsus is what I was thinking. Well, anyway, I was in the hospital and in rehab and homebound in a wheelchair for 2 months. And then after I returned from rehab on Super Bowl Sunday, that was in 2014, people started bringing over food, and they stopped by and they passed the hat and collected money to help defray costs for some of the out-of-pocket expenses. And not that I'm the overly sort of the empathy accepting type of guy, but it was just good to know that there are all these other people around and just other energy other than my own. And so it was a big hedge against the loneliness that I was feeling kind of homebound in my house. But that experience turned me into this big disciple for co-housing, as well as other types of intentional community living. And I've been a member of the Co-housing Association Board of Directors for the past 5 years. And during that time, we've had tremendous growth and a tremendous move forward towards a more professional organization. And we'll learn something about those things when Karen and Rosie get into the full presentation. But one of the things that we as a board have talked about, and we had a big retreat at the Portland, Oregon National Conference, is that out the front door, we're going to continue to push out information and technical assistance, largely to forming communities, as well as some to existing communities. And what what that entails is, you know, the usual nuts and bolts of co-housing, you know, land and facilities and common houses and picking architects and how we I guess push that information out is, you know, through our website and our web chats and our conferences and our regional conferences. So we're going to be pushing the same things out the front door. But one of the things that we kind of had an aha moment about is out the back door. What about the 170 existing communities and the 160 forming communities and the 30,000 people, the 30,000 co-housing residents that are participating and living in those communities? And so what if we were able to get everybody more organized on a grassroots level? We've been trying to set up regional organizations through Facebook groups and just through naturally forming communities out in the wild, such as happened in Portland. But what if we were able to get 30,000 residents together to be more organized? You know, all co-housing communities have as one of their basic missions is to accept everyone as who they are without any sort of assimilation, collaborating for the good of the community, and trying to live gently on the earth. And so what if 30,000 co-housers took it upon themselves to create some kind of quiet actions to bridge cultural and social divides? And what if 30,000 co-housers took it upon themselves to put together some sort of actions to end homelessness? And so these are the types of things that we're, at least myself, I'm interested in pushing out the back door to help us become better stewards of not just our own communities and the cities where we live, but what if we were all to do that in mass, and what kind of effect could we have in the entire fabric of the social fabric of the United States? So the day after Thanksgiving, that sort of signals the day of spending money during the holiday season. You've probably been getting letters in the mail, emails in your email boxes that every nonprofit organization in the United States of America is gearing up to ask for your donations. And after you wade through all the information, you wade through all the emails, and you wade through all the swag that you might get for your 20 bucks. You know, this is also an election year. And so nonprofit donations are going to have an even tougher time meeting the thresholds that they normally meet. And so then, rather than lining the pockets of political candidates who are trying to buy television ads in Iowa and New Hampshire, and lining the pockets of big box stores and multinational corporations that are taking business from our local businesses, what about investing in yourself and investing in a lifestyle that you have chosen to be in an intentional community? And that's a huge hedge against loneliness. The quote I always use is that that loneliness is as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and that's borne out by data. And communities find or provide safe places where kids can grow up healthy and strong with caring adults other than their family members. So there's lots of benefits to living in co-housing and lots of tangible reasons why investing in the Co-Housing Association is really a safe bet. So I'm here to report that the state of co-housing is strong, and we will only get stronger with your support, your community support for the Co-Housing Association. So I'm off my soapbox.
I enjoy it when you're on your soapbox. It's fun. And I agree with you most of the time. Well, thank you, Alan. I think, whoops. I'd like to just make sure that everybody kind of knows who is working by Alan's side trying to do some of this stuff. So here's a little, it's like the Brady Bunch picture here. So board of directors and staff. So you've heard from Alan. Ann is here. Just say hi, Ann. So Alan lives in Silver Sage Village in Boulder, Colorado. Annie lives in PDX Commons in Portland. Ty Albright is our treasurer, was not able to be here tonight. He is in Texas and Oklahoma direction, trying to get some things happening, particularly in Texas. Mary is here. Mary, you want to say hi?
Hello.
Pioneer Valley. Megan was not able to make it tonight, so she has lived in various forms of cooperative housing and in various intentional communities and co-ops. Jim Leach, also one of my across the street neighbors living in Silver Sage Village in Colorado. Linda is in California. Would that be considered Northern California?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then Liz Ryan Cole, our newest board member, who is back east working on creating Pinnacle Co-Housing. I'm Karin Hoskin, the executive director. I live in Wild Sage Co-Housing in Boulder, Colorado. Karen Gimnig is like my number 2, except for really she's my number 1 for sure. Came from Eastlake Commons in Georgia and is now up in the Pacific Northwest, and we will see what she creates up there. And then Rosie, who doesn't live in co-housing but cannot get away from us. Because she loves us and we love her. Welcome, everybody. So some cool and exciting new things. In 2019, we had a super successful national conference in Portland, Oregon. I'll give you some fun facts in a moment. We launched the Evergreen Neighbor campaign, which I'll give you some details about how to become an Evergreen Neighbor. Karen's going to give us a little tour and show us some super fun stuff on the brand shiny new website. And then this rocket launch thing, that was to remind myself that I wanted to tell you guys about 2 new programs that we started in 2019, one being the community launch and one being the professional launch. So the community launch program is for communities that want to launch. So they may be a group of people that's a nice solid group of people and they need to double their membership to be able to raise the funds to begin shopping for land or hiring their first professional. It might be a community that is under construction or about to break ground and looking for some new members, or a community that is under construction and needs the last few households, or it could be a community that is in existence that either has a bunch of households turning over at once and wants to get some word out about themselves, or perhaps they're doing like a phase 2 construction or a phase 3 construction. So it's a community in some form of whatever their status is that wants to launch themselves out there in the co-housing world. So we help out with things like advertising and putting the spotlight on them and what they're doing in the e-news, having their name pop up in a few different places on the new website, offering marketing information, or 30-minute, is that true, Karen? Consult free with a professional. There's a handful of professionals that have offered, sure, I'll talk to somebody for 30 minutes and give them what information I can in that time. So, community launch. Also, we have a professional launch program. So, similar concept. The idea is that, you know, there's probably a good dozen names in the co-housing world of professionals that if you have anything to do with co-housing, you recognize the name and you know what they do. But there's a lot more professionals that are either choosing to fully specialize in co-housing, whatever their service might be, or they're well established in the profession that they have, but they're really wanting to delve into that co-housing. So the concept with a professional launch is that it is somebody that's wanting to launch into the co-housing world. However, we are not exclusive, we are inclusive. So even if you've been around the block 50 times, but you would like to launch yourself as a professional in the co-housing world, we will happily help you with that. So again, it's some advertising stuff, it's some hints and tricks about how to get the word out, some opportunities to present at a conference or exhibit at a conference, some opportunities to be published on the website or in the e-news. I think that about covers it. Karen, did I miss anything? Big points?
No, I think that the thing to say about the professional launch is that it is a partnership, and I actually think of both of these programs as partnerships where part of what you're doing when you sign up for this is supporting the association, and the professionals do that in part by providing us with their expertise through blogs and web chats and other things. So one of the things I really like about it is that it's not a one-way fee for service. It's actually a joining together with the resources everybody's got to make all of cohousing better.
Absolutely. It's that whole goal of Katie McCamat's of the 500 communities, or now I've been hearing the phrase tossed around, 500 communities, let's go for 1,000. So those are some new things in 2019. So it's going to tell you a little bit about the status of our finances. So this graph, essentially, the blue columns above the zero is the income for 2019 year to date, and the blue columns below is expenses. So one thing to point out is you see Portland and you're like, wow, over $200,000 of income. True. And you'll notice on the below the line, $182 of expense of the Portland conference. So yes, we had some profit from that conference, but it costs a lot of money too to put on a great conference. So this is just kind of the main categories, some of the main ways that we have income, and then also the two biggest expenses, which are just simply running the organization, the association, and again, that conference. So I was going to say, so for you quick thinking mathematicians, yes, you will notice if at the bottom of the screen you add up those first four numbers of income, or excuse me, of income, and then add up the couple of couple of numbers of expenses, we're negative. But not to worry, because this November that just ended and December is often when we receive community donations from communities that do an annual giving to the association. It's also Giving Tuesday tomorrow, by the way, as Alan mentioned. So we are confident, looking at our projections, looking at our budget and our history, that we will end up net positive this year. Generally, it's not by a lot. It's pretty, what do you call that? Across the board. I don't know what you call that. Net. Equal. So yeah, so that's kind of an overview. And again, if you look at this, so this is just a history of just simply cash on hand at the end of the year history. So that cash on hand is what brings us to into the next year to be able to pay for things that we need to pay for, and is able to help us out with new fantastic projects like our website. I think that was about what Ty wanted me to share. So I wanted to tell you all about the Portland conference. I'm not sure if everybody who's on this call was able to be there, but it was fantastic. So it was in Portland, Oregon, May 30th through June 2nd. We had 3 amazing co-chairs, Ann Lehman, who's our board liaison with the other 2 conference co-chairs, which was Grace Kim and Sheila Hoffman. They were a great team. And then we had, I think it was about 45, the number might have been a little higher, of amazing volunteers, most of whom were local to the Portland area. We had 5 tours to offer, 21 intensive, pre-conference intensives, 114 sessions, 8 open houses. Grace Kim did a great public presentation that was attended by the Oregon State AARP representative, which was super fun to meet her. Courtney Martin was the keynote speaker, and she was great. There were 560 attendees from 8 different countries, 35 states, and 124 communities. Oh, and there was a surprise Starlight Parade that we weren't planning on, but it was fun. Anne, did you have anything else to say about the conference? Nope, you're muted. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay.
It was the enthusiasm and the connections that people were making that really kind of blew me away. That many people being in the same place, all really sharing sort of the same vision of what it means to live in co-housing and connecting with each other, both many, many new people, but also plenty and plenty of people who have been living in co-housing. I think we had more, not exactly old timers, but more residents of co-housing than we've had in the past. And all those people were connecting in a really wonderful way. I mean, the fantastic feedback we've been getting and got at the time has continued to this day. And I think it's really about what co-housing is all about. It was really about building community, and that's what you felt the strongest, and that's what I took away the most.
It was great. It really, really was. So something that came out of that conference, the association works really hard to make connections and help people make connections, not only be a resource, but just simply connecting people. For a while, the association had what they called regional groups. And so the idea is that people in various regions of the US would connect and support each other and make connections. And somebody comes to visit your community and is looking for a place to buy, but there's no availability, but there's a community that's across the street or the next town over that does have something, and you can connect them. So it's those kinds of things that was the idea with the regional groups. It was kind of evolved a little bit for the Portland conference, where we thought, wouldn't it be great as the conference planners to kind of help those people connect a little bit, because some people knew who was in their region, some people didn't. And then we realized, well, maybe it shouldn't be just regions. What about if it's people that have some sort of similarity besides co-housing or in addition to co-housing? So it evolved to the birds of a feather. And so again, it was to try and help connect those people, or allow the space for those people to connect that had some sort of affinity. So then it evolved to being affinity groups. So Karen will point out in a little bit on the website that we have a place on the website for those affinity groups. And what we can do as an association is just help connect you. Now, we're not going to arrange meeting times and that sort of thing. That's up to your own individual affinity group. But we are happy to do something. For example, Alan created a Facebook group. I think it's a group. Yes, it's a group called Romo Coho. So Rocky Mountain Co-housing. So Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico, I can't remember what other states are included, but it's a Facebook group. And so on the CohoUS website, we link you to the Facebook group if you're interested. And there's some other birds of a feather affinity groups that were early on identified or self-identified that are considering not only how they would like to connect, whether it's a Facebook group or a meetup group, or maybe a Zoom video conference call once a month or once a quarter, but also to consider what it is they want to do, like what kind of the goal of the group is. And it might simply be, I want to connect with other co-housers that work from home, for example. But it might be something where I'm a co-houser who lives in a very expensive to live city, I would like to see us figure out how we can have a voice or representation, or to be able to help nationally with the homelessness, houselessness situation. So it can be a pretty big variety of things. So that's one of the new ways to make connections. And then the other one, again, Karen will show us in a minute on the new website, is we have a new category or section in our co-housing directory, which is for seekers. And so the idea is, if somebody is seeking a community, or perhaps they're seeking people to come together with them to create a community, it's kind of like a little dating classified ads section. Maybe I shouldn't say it like that, but it's a way for them to connect. Let's see, some other great things in 2019. There are 3 committees that were just, they had been identified, but were really receiving very focused energy in 2019, end of 2019, and going on into 2020. So those 3 committees are the Events Committee, the Fundraising Committee, and the Recruitment Committee. So the Events Committee meets once every 2 to 4 weeks, right now every 3 weeks, for an hour on Zoom. And so, for example, for the National Portland Conference, they were the ones that helped identify that Portland, yes, was where that national conference should be held, and then helped identify or clarify who those main co-chairs would be. And then that event planning really got passed to those co-chairs. And some of the people that are on the CohoUS Events Committee also served on the Portland Conference Committee, but not necessarily. So the Events Committee going forward is working on the Simple Series 2020, which we'll chat about in a minute, and the National 2021 Conference. Again, so right now it's evaluating where that should be. Fundraising is another committee. Annie, do you want to talk about that committee a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So basically, when I started with the board about 2.5 years ago, most of the income coming in was from conferences and sponsorships. And while in some ways that's great, because it left open the possibility of creating other forms and streams, it also limited the amount of money that was coming in. And conferences, as we just saw, can not only be expensive, but they don't necessarily make a lot of money. And sponsorships only can go so far. So this year in particular, we really got off the ground more of an individual program. You know, since there are between 15 to 30,000 people in theory that are interested in co-housing, you know, if each of those people gave just a little bit, we would be in really great shape. But we don't have a history of doing that. So we did start the Evergreen program. We did start a few other programs, and changing that philosophy from we're here, everything we do except for conferences is free, to at least helping give support to the organization. What you don't want to be as a nonprofit, and we are a nonprofit, is the best known secret. And while I wouldn't say we're a secret, we certainly are not hugely well known in the world, or in the US even. So most of the time, if you ask somebody or tell somebody you live in co-housing, they look at you like, what? What's that? And that's not the way we want to be. So as we build up our ability to sort of market ourselves, and this year in particular, I think we did a really great job of getting some great press. Maybe you're going to speak about that in a moment, Karen, but you know, we had wonderful articles in the New York Times and a variety of magazines, and that's part of the way we get ourselves well known, but we're still not super well known in the housing community, which is something we really want to push longer and harder. So we are off to a great start, and we need all of your help starting tomorrow. And by the way, in case you don't already know this, anything you give tomorrow is is matched up to $10,000. So that's a great opportunity to double your donation. Or as I like to say, not your donation, it's your investment in the community of cohousing.
And you don't actually have to wait till tomorrow. Giving Tuesday starts today, which is nice. And you can do through our website. Our website's magical. You can do everything through there. I'll talk a little bit about the recruitment committee. So the recruitment committee is evolving a little bit. Originally, it was the committee that kind of sat down and brainstormed who can we talk into serving on the board of directors. And what has been realized is that while that has served the association quite well, for sure, that there is some amazing untapped talent out there. People who are really interested in co-housing, whether they live in it currently or not, and would like to be able to participate in that. So the recruitment committee is really looking at identifying not who exactly to serve on a committee or serve on the board of directors or even take on some sort of ad hoc project, but more specifically, what type of person, what kind of skills would be helpful, and then also considering how to then get that word out. So on a Facebook page or through the listserv, through the e-news, on the website. So there's a lot of different ways. And that is a committee that meets about once a month. So, and you can connect through that, through the website. So just kind of how to get involved. So there's a few kind of quote unquote obvious ways. One is serving on a committee or serving on the board of directors or helping with one of those ad hoc projects. So for example, an ad hoc project would be doing updates, some scrubbing of the directory, making sure that the listings that are listed on the directory are as accurate with the best contact info that, that is available. But some other ways is if if you are a Facebook user, taking a look at the CohoUS Facebook page, joining the group. So the page is something that CohoUS will post things on. The group is something that y'all can communicate. So somebody can share an article, people can comment about it, or just share kind of random facts or stories. And then it's possible that at some point we'll move away from Facebook and to other types of social media. We'll see how that kind of susses out. Some other ways to get involved is to simply tell your story, right? Like as Annie said, that there are definitely people that have no idea what co-housing is. So personally, I try and take every opportunity, you know, when you're in conversation with somebody at a kid's soccer game or at the grocery store or whatever, and somebody says, oh, where do you live? Instead of simply saying I live at the north end of town, I really do my best to every single time say, I live in Wild Sage Co-housing at the north end of town. And I would say probably 80% of the time somebody will say, oh, what's that? Or they'll say, oh, I have a friend who lives across the street or whatever. And if they ask me, what is that? I give my little elevator speech telling them about some of the perks and the benefits of co-housing and what it's like living in co-housing or an intentional community. Some other ways to get involved, like Alan was saying, is just kind of getting out there and just interacting with the world and taking the chance again to either talk a little bit about co-housing if the opportunity arises, or to just simply share some of the things that organically living in co-housing or creating co-housing we learn, like communication skills or listening skills. So Alan, for example, is involved with a group called Living Room Conversations, which is this fantastic national nonprofit group, which started as getting together a group of people that do not necessarily have the same views or beliefs and talking about a difficult conversation. So, so consider doing things like that as well. I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and Karen is going to take over and show us some cool stuff about the website.
Okay.
Ah, there you are.
Sorry, I thought I had unmuted. So yeah, so this is the website tour, and I'm just sort of getting my screen going here. So hopefully by now you have seen the new website, and for many of you there won't be a lot that's brand new. So we rolled this out just prior to the Portland conference, so that was the end of May, and continue to make changes and updates as time and budget allow. So it's pretty exciting. I want to draw attention first to this button up here, the login. It is a great idea for everybody to have a user account on the website. Currently, you will need that if you're gonna be the person who posts the directory listing for your community, or if you're placing a classified ad. And there will, over time, be other reasons you're gonna want to have a user account on the website. We are intending to have some of the data be sort of protected behind, that's for users only. And we're not currently planning to charge for that, but just to have some more sense of who's using the website and how they're engaging with it. So for example, the past web chats will at some point soon be for registered users only. So it's no cost and fairly basic to do. You just can click on the login screen and the login button, and a window will pop up and you can register as a user. So I recommend doing that right now if you want to and have an account. Next to the login button is this little search icon, and I want to draw your attention to that. The cohousing.org website is one of the largest you're likely to ever run into. The amount of information that we share on this website is pretty phenomenal. When we went to design it, I spent a lot of time trying to find other websites that dealt with this much information, and I can tell you there aren't that many out there. And because of that, although we absolutely have organized it as well as we know how to, if you know a particular thing that you're looking for on the website, this search button is going to be your best friend. The likelihood is that's going to get you there faster than trying to navigate. Karen uses it all the time.
All the time.
It's her favorite piece of the whole thing.
It is true.
So there are other ways to navigate. One of the things I'll point out is that almost any place on the site you can get there 3 or 4 different ways depending on how you function best. So I'll look at those, but just pointing out this little teeny tiny search icon that's really important. Other things in the header, the logo will get you back to the home page at any time, so that's handy. There's also one in the footer that has the same effect. We have the simple series, which is, this is the brand new this afternoon button, and I do have a little formatting cleanup to do there. But the simple series events that will be the 2020 events throughout the year will all come up there, and the links to each of them will be in that drop down. At the moment, we have the Affordable Online Conference coming up. That's the one there for now. CohoUS, this is where you will find anything that the association is up to. So if we're creating an event, you can get to that event through this page. If you want to know what's going on with the board, you can get to that here. If you're curious about the budget, there's all sorts of information there, or just who the heck are those board of directors, or who the heck are those staff members? Lots and lots of information there, more than it looks like even from that list. We'll say more in a bit about the directory and the classifieds. And then the donate button, of course, is options for communities or individuals to make donations to the association. The more button is maybe the biggest. It certainly has the most pages linked from it. And this is all the information. This is what people come to when they're trying to get co-housing built, or they're trying to run it, or they're thinking, okay, our common meals program just isn't quite what we want it to be. How do other people organize their common meals? Or how does this building a co-housing community thing even work? How do I get started? All of that kind of content information about what co-housing is, why we have co-housing, and how we do co-housing is under this More button. And again, there are multiple ways to get to all of those things. So you can get to almost everything that's in the header by way of scrolling the homepage. So we're going to do that next. I want to draw your attention. People don't always see this little vertical banner to the left here. That's probably the piece of the homepage that changes most often. It will have the most current or soonest upcoming event, and will link you. You can click on that to get right to the information about that event. So when we first launched the website, it was the Portland conference. For a while, it was the web chats because we didn't have an immediately planned next event. And now it's the affordable online conference that we're calling an affordable conference on affordable co-housing. So just watch that. If you're looking for the latest upcoming event, that's going to be the fastest click to get to it. And then there's also the subscribe to e-news. So if you are not on our e-news list, this is something we'd recommend. Also recommend that you recommend it to your community members and neighbors. This list, we send 2 newsletters a month, and a handful of times a year we send out announcements of major events coming up, registration opening for a conference, things of that nature. So if you haven't already subscribed to the e-news, we have that right up front because it's a great way to stay up to speed on what's going on in the land of co-housing, both what we're doing as an association, where we're showing up in the news, all those kinds of things show up in that newsletter. How am I doing, Karin? Have I left out anything important yet?
Nope, you're doing good.
Excellent. We really wanted to highlight this next piece is very much for the folks that come to cohousing.org because they've heard about co-housing or they ran into it somehow and they're like, what the heck is that thing? What is co-housing? So we highlight that really front and center. I'll go to that page and we'll go through a little more detail of that, but that's why they get such high-end real estate, the what and the why of co-housing. Because we know that a lot of people get to this page and it's kind of their first primer on what co-housing is all about. So those are there. And if you just love to look at fun pictures, there you can scroll through the slideshows and there are many communities represented in those. So that's fun. This learning about co-housing section is again where all of that content is. This is really a mirror of that more button, more menu that I showed you. So if you don't like to do drop-down menus and you prefer to scroll homepage, you can find all of that information here. So these are all links. So the Find It is largely the directory and classifieds. Create It is everything to do with creating co-housing. So this is the stuff that if you already live in a co-housing community, you may be curious about, but you're not likely to use that information. The Live It and Run It sections are everything that has to do with people currently living in co-housing. So of course, we figure that people who are creating co-housing are pretty likely to read all of it. And so if it's of interest to both people who are creating co-housing and people who already live in co-housing, it goes over in the Live It or Run It sections. So the next piece, this is another piece that changes with some regularity. It's really whatever we're featuring. So at the moment, we are still featuring the Courtney Martin keynote from the national conference. It was fabulous and we got a ton of good feedback about it. So that's currently the sort of feature piece of the homepage. And we shift that out as other things need to be featured. Our strategic partners section, these are folks that are very aligned with us in mission and that partner with us for things like marketing. So they'll put out what we're doing in their marketing newsletters and things, and we do the same for them. And so we're glad to be partnered with them and we appreciate their support of us and are glad for the opportunity to help support them. So currently our 3 strategic partners are the Cohousing Research Network, SAGE, Cohousing International, and the Foundation for Intentional Community. And that brings us to the footer of the homepage. And the thing to really say about the footer is it's everything to do about how we connect with each other. So if you're like, hey, I think there must be this way that I could connect with other co-housers, odds are it's in the footer. So the engage section, these are places that are more interactive. So e-news, the cohousing-out listserv, the Facebook group, our blog, in the news, which is articles that come our way, and then the web chats are all right there. There's also to follow, so that's the main Facebook page. If you have a Twitter account, and then our YouTube channel are all there if you want to look for those kinds of things. Also, donate button, as has been said, we are a nonprofit. We rely on donations to be able to function, so we want to highlight that. And another way that you can support cohousing.org and get a little something for it is that you advertise with us. So we'd be thrilled to help you sell your home in cohousing. We'll look at a few other things that show up on the classifieds shortly. But that's also front and center because it's a way that we can stay in business. Also, the contact us link is there. And for those who occasionally want to actually send us something through the mail, most of the time that's a check, which we like a lot. But the address is here. So that gets you there. The last thing I want to point out here is there is a site map. So if you're a person who likes to navigate not using the search and you just want to look at what are all the different pages that are on the site, that site map you can get to through the footer. And then the last thing on the footer is another opportunity to sign up for our e-news. So all of those good things. Karen, I'm going to pause for a second in case anyone's been posting a question or there's something else I should address.
You know,
Nope.
while,
Keep going.
yeah, I was going to say, while we're waiting, I just wanted to say a few things. First of all, looking a little bit forward instead of backwards, one of the things that we've been trying to get off the ground for the last few years, and there's been some work on this in the past, but not formally, is a policy committee. And Liz Cole, who just joined our board, is and has a legal background, is going to help us sort of focus in on what are the issues that we might want to focus on, what are the kinds of things that we could comment on that are maybe not necessarily totally at the local level, but that might have some kind of national impact. The other area that we really want to grow is marketing. If you have any skills in that area, we would love, love, love to have you. And also, we would love to have you on our committees. You do not have to be a board member. You do not have to commit to any gobs of time to participate in our committees. And so if you're interested in helping put on our conferences, if you're interested in helping us market, if you're interested in helping us fundraise, but you don't know a lot about fundraising, if you're interested in helping our directory stay up to date, these are all things that we could use your help for. And, you know, the organization is only as strong as its members. So the more that you all contribute both your time and your resources, the more successful we will be.
Okay, thanks, Annie. So I want to take a little time to go through in more detail some of these other pages that you can get to through navigation. So the association CohoUS page, many of our pages are this basic design that have these little cards that then link to additional pages about all the information you'd ever want. So again, you can get to anything if Karin and I are spending any staff time on it, if any of our committees or board members are doing anything about it, odds are the place you find it is through this page. And this is where that committees and affinity groups list is that Karin mentioned, and evergreen neighbors, all those kinds of things. So that's a very useful page and has probably more depth than one would guess from its little button up there, but lots of interesting things there. The directory, which is our all new with this website directory, we did import some data just to make sure we had something filled in. But one of the things I want to point out about the directory is that if you are part of a community that has not yet updated your directory for this year, if you haven't done it since May of 2019, we'd really like you to go in and create a new directory listing. The way you can tell is that if you have not, you have all of these NAs in your directory listing. So if that's what your community listing looks like at the moment, please, please, please make a new one. And the way you do that is to make your user account, as I've already suggested, and then to go to this directory tab and just add a listing. And it's as simple as that. New features of the directory that we're pretty excited about. We do have a professionals directory, and it's worth noting that this is a free service. We felt like it was really important that the users of our website, the people trying to build co-housing, had access to all the professionals and had one place they could go to say, here's all the people who do this particular thing, whether it's an architect or a process professional or a development consultant or whatever that thing might be, marketing support. If you are a professional who does work in co-housing, we'd very much like you to be listed here. So that's a reason to add a listing as well. And the other new category that we're pretty excited about is our seekers category, which Karin mentioned. Lots of reasons to try and have our seekers listed. The most obvious one is that then they can find each other. So I just imagine that if you picked any significant sized city in the US, I'm betting there's more than one person in that city who would like to do co-housing, and that some of those people don't know about each other. And if they all found each other, if everybody in any given municipal area that was interested in co-housing could all find each other, that would be a really good start to getting some communities launched. So that was the first thought. And there is more. One of the things that we think will happen is that if we can show interest, we can say, hey, we've got a list of 25 names or 100 names in this particular area or within 25 miles of this city or whatever, that might help us to recruit partners and get partners involved in the creation of new co-housing communities in that area. So if you are a seeker or know people who are seekers, we'd really encourage you to get listed in the seekers directory so you all can find each other. And if you're an existing community who has a newsletter, often those newsletter lists are full of seekers. We'd love you to put an article in your newsletter that just lets people know this is available and links them here to the website to encourage them to get listed here as well, because we think that's really going to help us launch more communities. So that's the directory piece. Classifieds, and classifieds are paid ads, and we have the categories we've always had and a few more. In the communities realm, we have forming communities and building communities, the distinction there being that building communities are communities that have land and an architect and are at least in the design phase, if not putting shovels in the ground, recognizing that that is a step ahead of where forming communities are, and it's worth making that distinction, giving them credit for their progress thus far. And we also have a category for established communities, and people sometimes say, well, why would an established community want a classified ad? If they've already sold all their houses, wouldn't they only do resale ads and or homes, which they certainly could. The reason I think there's value in having an established community ad is because the reality is you are going to have resales that come up. And so it's a place to say, hey, we're here and you want to get added to our list, and this is what's great about us as a community. And it's also another flavor of giving support on a regular basis to the association. And it's a little piece that comes back. Another category that's brand new with the new website that I'm excited about is the co-houser owned business category. So Karin's going to advertise hers here Karin, say a minute, but what yours is?
It's a doodle suit. It's a snowsuit for dogs.
Yep. So she has this other business that she makes doggy snowsuits. And what we think is that co-housers might be pretty interested in supporting other co-housers in their business adventures. So if you want to let other co-housers know what you're up to, and we sort of guess that we're all aligned in our values and would like to support each other, there's a place for you to put an ad there about your co-houser owned business. So those are the major sections. We talked about donations before. It always bears more mention. And the next thing I really want to look at is this more, which, as I said, is the most expansive of all the buttons at the top of the screen. And I want to show you just a couple of examples and some features of pages that we have. there is so much information. I think most of us kind of know that, and if you've waded through it on the old website trying to find something, you may have an appreciation for how very much is there. As we tried to organize it, we sort of worked in levels. So we have at the top level, find it, create it, live it, and run it. And then within each of those, we have a few more sections, divisions of categories. So for example, in create it, we have relationships that you're creating and support for how to create those relationships, the resources that you need to come together. So this is the sort of piece about how to get members and money. And then the buildings, how to get the buildings created. And so one of the sample pages I want to show you is through that. So as you're building buildings, a number of things that you need, and one of them is site design. So what are the common features of a site? And one of the things I'm excited about with this page is that it was built in cooperation with a professional who knows a lot about site design. And I will say other pages, I don't care if you're a professional, if you're just a person in co-housing who knows a lot about a particular topic. It's always better if the community is contributing and we're getting that information, because I think I know a lot about co-housing. I hope I do, and I write a lot about it, but I absolutely know that the rest of you know way more than I do. So I was very excited that Laura Fitch agreed to collaborate with me on getting this page written, and she did the majority of the drafting, and then we worked together on the editing, and I'm really pleased with what we ended up with. She also is one of our association supporters, and as such is sponsoring this page. Community launch communities and professional launch professionals also get to sponsor pages, or you can sponsor a page just as a standalone. You can write us a check to sponsor a web page. And we think it's pretty cool that we can just name that. And I will say that it is true, not all the pages are built out yet, and the ones that get sponsored get built out first. So you actually can influence how quickly certain content gets shared by sponsoring a web page. And we recognize that at the top here. The pages, again, we have certain formats we use pretty repetitively. This is a common one where it's a mixture of text and photos, and it's in sections. So as you go through, you can, if you just want to get to, oh wait, I wanted to see what that green open space was, you can click here and it will jump to that part of the page. So I just want to scroll down and show you kind of what that looks like. So having the various pieces or aspects of designing a site, what needs to go into site design. And then if I wanted to just jump down to the end, this is the final section of that particular content. We like to appreciate the people who've helped us write a page. So if you have contributed to a page, or if we have borrowed your content from Cohousing-L or other places in order to write it, we recognize you in this little thank you box. And then we have a note that we know that things change and that we don't always get it right, or that we don't necessarily have every perspective when we get started. And so if you have content for us because we lacked clarity, or we missed a piece, or there's another way that we didn't notice, or for that matter, if you just noticed some typos, I'm very happy to hear about that. And that's what this piece is about, communicating. Typically the sort of top half of the pages, I think of it, so the part I've shown you so far, we think of as more curated. So it's not everything ever written. It's the sort of main themes, the main ideas. It's something a user can come to. They read that part of the page and they have a pretty good understanding of the concept. And we try to make sure that it's as clear and concise as it can be, and also complete. So that part's pretty heavily curated. What comes under this little section, or below the line, as I say, is the more sort of egalitarian, anybody can contribute almost anything. You know, we keep it related to co-housing and clean and not straight out advertising. But other than that, if you have a story to tell that relates to co-housing, it belongs here. And we don't limit that. So your perspectives, your ideas, your thoughts, your experiences show up here. So what this bottom section is, it's actually our blog, but it's the blog pages, or the blog submissions that we have that are related to this particular page. So everything listed here relates to site design. And some of them are articles. Somebody wrote something informational. Some of them are stories. Somebody has told the story of their experience. And some of them are resources, documents, books, web chats, things of that nature. So that's one example of a kind of a page that we use a lot. I want to show you a couple of other. So under Run It, I'm actually going to go to the Run It page and we'll go through there. So here are the various sections of the Run It page. Under Relating, we have a consensus page. This is again one that was a collaborative page. Had somebody with some expertise in consensus that helped draft it. And again, the sections, consensus isn't a topic that has a ton of photos, or certainly not photos related to each section. So this is a largely text. And again, if I want to say jump down to process roles, I can get to that section through the index. Again, the thank you box here. The piece that's different about this one is we actually have web chats related. So if we have a web chat on that particular topic, in addition to showing up on the past web chats page, it's also showing up here so that you can play it directly from the content page. So if you're looking for content on certain information, the web chats also are right there and available. A couple of other pages we wanted to highlight, and I'm just using the home button there to get back to the top instead of scrolling. The what is cohousing? So we mentioned that it was on the home page with sort of the big section you could link to. This page is really, those of you on this call probably don't need this information because you know what cohousing is, but we would encourage you to use it. You can link to it from your community website as a way to let people know what cohousing is more generally. It's a great piece to have if you're doing like an info meeting for a creating community or forming community, to have up like as people are gathering for an info meeting, or if you want to have it up on a laptop that people can scroll through as just a way to have information about what cohousing is and how it works. So that's the what is cohousing page. And again, I'm going to pop back up to the top because I want to look at why, which I would say is another one that you can use in those ways. I also encourage folks to use the why page for text that you are welcome to lift and use in your marketing. I think we sometimes don't think of all the reasons. And this page was actually generated from focus groups of people who've lived in cohousing for a long time. And we had conversations, and I sort of recorded what came out of those conversations and pulled it together. And so if you click on any one of those, my Zoom screen is in the way here, so I can't, there we go. But you can scroll through the various reasons, and they're divided into why it's good for the whole world, why it's good for our community of people who live together, and then why it's good for me as an individual. And most of them have all three of those sections. So really looking at the many, many ways that cohousing benefits at all different levels. So great information there. And again, feel free to lift that and use it in your marketing. Couple other.
So I'm watching time.
Okay, yep.
And we're a little past.
Okay.
So if you have any more super important, otherwise I would just really encourage everybody. Thank you, Karen, for that tour. Use the search button, you guys, and check out our website, poke around there, and let us know if you have any comments or suggestions. We would happily take them. Okay, Karen?
Perfect.
Yep, okay. All right, so I'm gonna try and wrap us up really quickly here, trying to honor people's time. So 2019 was awesome, and 2020 is gonna be great as well. I wanted to give you a few dates or things that are coming up to kind of plant in your mind. All of this is on the website. So Giving Tuesday is tomorrow, and as Annie mentioned, we do have a donor that is willing to match any Giving Tuesday donations that have been made. So that's fantastic. So please support. Simple Series, The first thing in the Simple Series 2020 is coming up 2/22/20, a lot of twos, which you'll hear about. An affordable conference on affordable co-housing. This is an online conference, our first ever online conference, which is coming together nicely. Details, including registration, will be, some of the details are on the website now. Registration will be coming up soon. Open House, the National Co-Housing Open House Day. So it's always the last weekend, last full weekend in April. And we alternate between Saturdays and Sundays. So in 2020, it will be Sunday, April 26th. There will be information on the website, generally right after the first of the year, with how you can kind of register your community as one of the communities that will be hosting an open house, along with some marketing information if you would like. And then web chats. Web chats are continuing. We have the next one is Karen is talking personal growth. The most important reason for co-housing, I think is what the subtitle was. So that is this Thursday, the 5th at 6 p.m. And Alan, take us home. Close us out.
Thanks everyone for taking an hour out of your evening to spend talking about co-housing and listening to the state of the Co-Housing Association at the end of 2019. And Karin indicated that we have one anonymous donor who will match your contributions dollar for dollar. And also, if you should happen to donate through Facebook on Giving Tuesday, the association has a link through there. I've set one up through there, and I'm not sure who else has set up a link to benefit the Co-Housing Association, but they'll be matching yet another dollar. So if you give a dollar, it will be matched 2 times over. And I can't be more explicit in saying that we can always use your support, not only digging deep down in your pockets, but also if you have some time to be able to donate some time to be on a committee, help us organize events, help organize an event in your own community, where we would be greatly appreciative of any contributions that you can make to the association.
All right. Thank you, everybody.